Hey everyone, welcome to another one of our weekly chats at Ignite Social Media. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that's been prevalent for quite a while now, is the decline of Facebook. And recently there was an article that basically said it's doomed.
Yeah, and I don't know. That seems like a bit of an overstatement, but the guy who wrote it is sort of famous for taking controversial positions. But I do think we're at a Facebook peak, and I do feel like, not in terms of necessarily user base disappearing, but the frequency with which we all check it. I think there was a point when everyone was checking Facebook 25, 30 times a day, and I know for most people I talk to, that's way down. They're still checking it, but just not the same.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's very fitting. Another piece of news that came out about Twitter, about how they are constantly doing all these little tiny updates, and it's like it was a perfect example of how Twitter can change a bunch of things, and Facebook makes one announcement and everybody freaks out, and
Right.
Twitter's completely fine. What do you think that is?
Well, Twitter's doing a couple things. One, they're doing a bunch of little experiments every day that only a small group of people see. So that's part of it. The other part is the user base of Twitter. One, it's either sort of the digerati, the technical people who don't really get upset about changes, or teens, and they don't get upset about changes. It's the older people on Facebook that are often not that technically savvy that are most upset when a platform changes. So there's that. There's also the fact that a lot of these changes, like Twitter this week was doing related tweets as one of their experiments. Those aren't really just to monetize, and a lot of Facebook's changes in the last year or two have been to monetize, and that's ruined the experience a little bit. Plus, Facebook slowed down the news feed, and I think they've gotten it wrong, and they're trying to fix that now. But Twitter hasn't sort of messed up the fundamental platform.
So, I mean, how much time do you think Facebook has left?
Facebook has a lot of time left. And for years, Facebook and Twitter, there was some discussion 4 years ago about if there was a race, and then Facebook just crushed Twitter. And Facebook was the smarter company. Facebook was iterating quickly, adding functionality, really, really smart, and Twitter was just asleep. It was like they did nothing for 4 years. Those roles have reversed now. Twitter's woken up. They added cards. They added a lot of features that make Twitter better. And Facebook is the one making decisions that aren't so popular. But we have to think back to when MySpace died and how slowly that died. And that was after sort of the world had agreed it was over. And the world doesn't agree yet that Facebook's over. So they have that central place in our lives, like you were saying earlier, that the yearbook for your life, that you might want to keep that. You may want to check it just less frequently. So Facebook's got time, and they can make. There's a lot of cards left for them to play if they're smart enough to play them.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, what happens to them over the next couple of years. Do you think that social networks are kind of like popular bands, where there's like this lifespan of like maybe 6 years, where they get really popular and then they get too popular and then they become uncool, and it's just got to move on to the next one?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think we saw that with MySpace. We saw that with Friendster before that. But then there's some weird things that happen. Like Twitter, has been around since 2006, and we saw a huge spike in usage last year. They were the fastest growing social network in 2012. Teens went from 11% to 26% of teens with an account in 1 year for a 6-year-old social network. So, that's a sort of weird late hockey stick for Twitter. But at the same time, you've seen some others. So potentially, yes. And I think Facebook has already gone from sort of cool to social burden. And we got to check it. We got to see, what people are doing. And still occasionally fun. But definitely the mindset of, a band, like, is Mumford & Sons trendy or underground, or is it mainstream, and when is it over? I think that analogy is pretty apt.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I try to make apt analogies whenever possible. Well, that just about does it for this week. If you would like to subscribe to our weekly email, you can do so at ignitesocialmedia.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at IgniteSMA.